Cortisol is not the villain you think it is. But under the wrong conditions, it becomes the exact force that strips muscle off your frame while you are convinced you are doing everything right. The real problem starts when people reduce muscle growth to two variables, training and protein, and completely ignore the hormonal environment controlling both. Cortisol sits at the center of that environment. It is released in response to stress, including training itself. And in the short term, it is essential. It mobilizes energy, increases alertness, and helps you perform. But the mechanism shifts when exposure becomes chronic. Cortisol increases proteolysis, meaning it actively breaks down muscle protein into amino acids to be used as fuel. At the same time, it suppresses muscle protein synthesis by interfering with anabolic signaling. You are no longer building more than you break down. You are slowly reversing the process. This is not theoretical. Research in exercise physiology consistently shows that elevated cortisol correlates with reduced net protein balance. As stated in the Journal of Applied Physiology, quote, chronic elevations in cortisol are associated with increased muscle protein breakdown and impaired recovery, end quote. That means even if your training stimulus is correct, the internal environment is now biased toward loss, not growth. The consequence is subtle at first. Strength plateaus. Pumps feel weaker. Recovery takes longer. Most people respond by increasing effort, adding volume, or cutting calories harder, which only pushes cortisol higher and accelerates the problem. The solution begins with a shift in perspective. You are not just managing workouts, you are managing stress load. Training is only one piece of that load. If you want muscle to grow, the body must feel safe enough to invest resources into building tissue. Right now, for many people, it does not. If this already sounds familiar, you need to reassess how you define progress, not just how hard you train. The real danger is not extreme stress. It is constant, moderate stress that never turns off. Most people never notice it because each individual habit feels harmless. Slight sleep restriction, a mild calorie deficit, high training frequency, daily caffeine reliance. None of these alone seem destructive. Together, they create a persistent elevation in cortisol that reshapes your physiology. The body does not distinguish between psychological stress and physical stress. It sums everything into one signal. That signal determines whether you build or conserve. The mechanism is cumulative. Sleep loss as small as 2 hours per night has been shown to increase evening cortisol levels by up to 37%. At the same time, caloric restriction increases cortisol secretion to mobilize stored energy. Add high-volume resistance training without sufficient recovery, and you create repeated spikes that never fully return to baseline. Over time, the baseline itself rises. This is where the shift happens. Cortisol is no longer just a response. It becomes the default state. A report in Sleep Medicine Review states, quote, sleep restriction results in significant dysregulation of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, end quote. That axis is the control system governing cortisol release. Once dysregulated, your body begins each day already in a stress state before training even starts. The consequence is reduced recovery capacity. Muscle damage accumulates faster than it can be repaired. Glycogen replenishment slows. Even motivation drops because the nervous system is under constant load. This is why many disciplined individuals feel stuck. They are not lacking effort. They are exceeding their ability to recover from that effort. And because progress slows, they push harder, unknowingly reinforcing the exact environment that is holding them back. The solution here is not dramatic, but it is precise. You must identify hidden stressors and reduce total load. Start with sleep duration and consistency. Then examine training volume relative to recovery. And finally assess whether your calorie deficit is sustainable. Control these, and cortisol begins to normalize instead of accumulate. At this stage, the problem becomes biochemical, not behavioral. Even if you maintain discipline, cortisol now directly interferes with the signaling pathways that control muscle growth. The central issue is that muscle hypertrophy depends on a strong anabolic signal, primarily through the mTOR pathway. This pathway regulates muscle protein synthesis, essentially telling the body to build new tissue. Chronic cortisol disrupts this signal at multiple levels. It reduces mTOR activity, increases expression of myostatin, which limits muscle growth, and suppresses testosterone production. You are not just under-recovering, you are actively blocking the mechanisms required to adapt. The mechanism is competitive. Cortisol and testosterone operate in a functional opposition. When cortisol remains elevated, testosterone output declines, and the ratio between the two becomes unfavorable. This ratio matters more than either hormone alone. A study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology notes, quote, "An elevated cortisol to testosterone ratio is associated with impaired strength adaptation and reduced anabolic response." End quote. That means even if your testosterone is within normal range, high cortisol can still blunt its effect. At the cellular level, cortisol also increases ubiquitin proteasome activity, accelerating protein degradation. You are simultaneously reducing synthesis and increasing breakdown. The consequence becomes visible. Strength gains stall despite consistent programming. Muscle fullness decreases due to reduced glycogen storage. You may even notice increased soreness that lingers longer than expected. Many interpret this as a need for more stimulus, but the reality is the opposite. The system is saturated with stress signals and cannot translate effort into adaptation. The solution requires restoring anabolic sensitivity. This is not achieved by adding supplements or increasing intensity. It comes from reducing chronic cortisol exposure so that mTOR signaling can function again. That means strategic deloads, adequate carbohydrate intake to lower stress hormone output, and controlled training intensity rather than constant maximal effort. When cortisol drops, the same training stimulus suddenly becomes effective again. The most damaging effect of chronically elevated cortisol is not immediate muscle loss. It is the slow shift in body composition that happens while you believe you are maintaining progress. The problem begins when cortisol alters how your body partitions energy. Instead of directing nutrients toward muscle repair and growth, it prioritizes survival. The mechanism involves increased gluconeogenesis and reduced insulin sensitivity. Cortisol drives glucose production while simultaneously making muscle tissue less responsive to insulin. This means fewer nutrients enter muscle cells, and more remain in circulation or get stored as fat. Over time, this creates a visible contradiction. You train consistently, you control calories, yet body fat increases, especially around the abdominal region. This is not random. Cortisol specifically promotes visceral fat storage because that tissue has a higher density of glucocorticoid receptors. At the same time, muscle tissue becomes metabolically less active. A review in Obesity Reviews states, quote, "Chronic cortisol exposure is linked to central fat accumulation and loss of lean mass." End quote. That combination is critical. You are not just gaining fat, you are losing the very tissue that supports metabolic efficiency. The consequence extends beyond aesthetics. As lean mass decreases, resting metabolic rate declines. This makes fat loss progressively harder, even if calorie intake remains controlled. Training performance also drops because muscle glycogen storage is impaired. You feel flatter, weaker, and less responsive to training. Many respond by cutting calories further or increasing cardio, which again raises cortisol and accelerates the cycle. This is where long-term frustration develops. You are investing more effort but receiving diminishing returns. The solution is to reverse the internal environment that is driving this shift. Restoring insulin sensitivity through adequate carbohydrate intake, reducing unnecessary training stress, and stabilizing sleep patterns directly lowers cortisol impact. When that happens, nutrients begin to partition back toward muscle instead of fat. There is a point where continuing to push harder stops being productive and starts accelerating regression. This is the phase where cortisol dominance overrides recovery completely. The problem is that most people misinterpret the early warning signs. They see fatigue, reduced performance, and lack of progress as a need for more discipline. In reality, these are markers of functional overreaching moving toward overtraining. The system is no longer adapting. It is defending. The mechanism is driven by cumulative stress exceeding adaptive capacity. Each training session creates micro-trauma and a hormonal response. Normally, recovery processes restore and improve the system. But when cortisol remains elevated, recovery pathways are suppressed. Heart rate variability decreases, resting heart rate increases, and sympathetic nervous system activity remains high. A position stand from the American College of Sports Medicine states, quote, "Prolonged imbalance between training and recovery may lead to overtraining syndrome with performance decrements lasting weeks or months." End quote. That is not a short-term setback. It is a prolonged disruption. At this stage, adding more volume or intensity compounds the problem. Strength drops despite consistent effort. Sleep quality worsens even when time in bed is sufficient. Motivation declines because the nervous system is fatigued. Injury risk increases due to impaired tissue repair and coordination. What feels like a plateau is actually a downward trajectory. The critical turning point is recognizing that effort is no longer the limiting factor. Recovery is. The solution is deliberate reduction, not escalation. This includes planned deload weeks where volume is reduced by 30 to 50%. Maintaining intensity but lowering total stress. Monitoring simple metrics like morning heart rate or perceived fatigue can guide adjustments. If these markers improve, cortisol is likely decreasing and recovery capacity is returning. Pushing harder at this stage does not build resilience. It deepens dysfunction. The final shift is understanding that cortisol is not the enemy, mismanagement is. The problem starts when stress becomes continuous and unregulated. The mechanism is simple but strict. Your body allocates resources based on perceived safety. When cortisol remains elevated, it signals instability, and growth processes are deprioritized. When cortisol is controlled, the same system shifts back toward repair, adaptation, and muscle gain. This is not about eliminating stress. It is about structuring it so that peaks are followed by true recovery. The evidence is consistent. Strategic recovery restores anabolic signaling, improves insulin sensitivity, and normalizes hormonal balance. A meta-analysis in sports medicine reports, quote, "Adequate sleep and recovery interventions significantly enhance muscle protein synthesis and performance outcomes." End quote. That means recovery is not passive. It is a direct driver of progress. Without it, training stimulus is wasted. The consequence of ignoring this is predictable. You remain in a cycle of high effort with low return. But when you correct it, Progress resumes without increasing workload. Strength improves, muscle fullness returns, and body composition begins to shift in the intended direction. The difference is not more intensity, it is better regulation. The solution is precise and measurable. Fix your sleep window first. Set a consistent schedule with a minimum of 7 to 8 hours per night and maintain it for 7 consecutive days. This alone can significantly reduce baseline cortisol. Next, align your training with recovery capacity. Limit high-intensity sessions to what you can recover from within 48 hours. Finally, ensure adequate carbohydrate intake around training to blunt excessive cortisol release and support glycogen restoration. Start with one action. Tonight, set a fixed sleep time and wake time and commit to it for 1 week without exception. Track how you feel, how you perform, and how you recover. That data will show you more than any theory.